Thank you so much for granting us this interview, despite the fact that it's a short notice. First and foremost, the Gambia would be celebrating its Diamond Jubilee tomorrow. So, on this note, we will just want you to first take us a reflection of the earlier years of the Gambia's independence back in 1965 or before 1965.
Thank you very much, Hassoum Ceesay. I want to say that 60 years ago, there was a lot of doubt about the ability of our country to survive as an independent sovereign state. And the doubt was, well informed, frankly speaking. It wasn't, out of malice or anything. It was well informed. Economically, we only had groundnuts as the mainstay of the economy. There was no industry, there was no tourism, there were no services. It's only groundnuts. Okay, such that there was a lot of, speculation about economic viability of the country. Politically, there were ideas being floated about the Gambia being merged into Senegal as the eighth region of Senegal, or there was even something called the Malta Plan, something like half independence, where some aspects will be run locally, while some aspects will still be handled in London. Okay. Number three, the country was heavily divided because the British had this divide and rule policy of protectorate and colony. If you are in Bathos, Bakau, Serekunda, you had all the advantages. Okay? But if you live in Bara and anywhere else in the rural areas, you live in a completely different world. So this, kind of, divide affected even the psyche and the mentality of a lot of Gambians, because really it was like one country, two systems. So, in terms of infrastructure also, there was almost nothing. We did not have a road network. If you wanted to travel to Basse or to Kuntaur, you hop onto a boat, called Lady Ride. We did a weekly, sail, from Batos to Fatato. There was no university. In fact, we had less than 20 university graduates in 1965. So, yeah, because of this very, very precarious economic, infrastructure, and political situation, very few people believe in the ability of this country to survive as an independent, sovereign state.
Of course, before independence, there were factors that warranted Gambians to actually wanted their independence. Take us through some of those factors.
Well, the factors were just, the exploitative nature of colonialism and the oppressive nature of colonialism also. For example, we were not citizens. If you are born in Batosia before independence, in your passport they'll put your name and British subject. Yeah. A British subject.
And how the ordinary Gambian felt.
Yeah, of course, that was the ultimate insult. In your own country, you are not called a citizen. Remember, we are not called Gambians, we were called Africans. Before independence, you cannot call anybody from the Gambia Gambian. If you met at the airport in Dakar, they will not call you Gambian. They call you African or British subject. You see? If you are born in Bara, you are not even a subject. You are lower than a subject. You are called a British Protected Person, BPP. You see? So these are some of the indignities, okay, of life under colonial rule. Taxation, okay, and there were different type of taxes which we were supposed to pay. Yet it was only in the 50s that we started to elect our own representatives. You had all kinds of oppressive laws, in the media, for example, 1946, press ordinance, which required the editors of the Gambia Echo, the Gambia Outlook, the Weekly News, the Vanguard, to make a hefty deposit before their newspapers were giving a new registration. You see, there was censorship. There was a censorship board in this country, so that before you publish anything in your newspaper, there was a man called Captain Peters, a British man, who will have to take his pencil, blue pencil, and cut out anything he thought should not be published, and then the editor will go and then revise your galleys before you went to press. You see.
Yeah. Now tell us some of the major challenges faced by the country in its first years of.
First challenge was how to unite the Gambia into one country, how to recover from the colony protectorate divide. That was a big challenge for Sadauda. Okay, how did he overcome the challenge? He opened up the party and the government. The people of Batos, Banjul, were seen to be opposition, supporting Per Njai, Jahumpa, or Reverend J.C. Fai. And they disliked the PPP because the PPP was seen as a party of the rural areas, as a protectorate, party. In fact, that was the earlier name of the party. But Sadauda opened up the party. That's why you had Banjul politicians like A.B. Njai, Sir Aliu Jack, ML Saho, I.M. Gaba Jahumpa, Kelefa Samba, all of them joined the PPP. So that was a very, very good way of healing the urban-rural divide that we inherited. Now, another challenge was the economy. They used to send money from England for us to pay salaries. But because of sound management by Sadauda and his young ministers, by 1967, we were able to register a balanced budget. Okay? And what was called grant in aid was stopped, because now we can pay salaries without getting support from, from London. Okay? Now the third challenge had to do with the challenge of infrastructure. Okay? How did we overcome that? Through the philosophy of Tacito, self-reliance. Gambians used to build their own schools. Their own schools. If you wanted a school, you'll go to the bush, cut some branches, erect a hut, and government will post a teacher. In 2 years, government will now come and erect a cement, structure. You see. So these were some of the strategies of survival. And of course, Sadauda also cultivated very strong, diplomatic ties with Senegal, with UK, with the Arab world. That was also a survival tactic. That was very, very successful.
Of course, the political landscape has not been the same 60 years ago. Now, can you take us through as to how the Gambia's political landscape has evolved over the past 60 years?
Well, we have been able to maintain a multi-party democratic system. I think it's a big plus for us, a big achievement. We have never, since 1947, this country have held elections, multi-party democratic elections, every 5 years. That is a unique record in Africa. So really we have had over 75 years of uninterrupted multi-party democratic system. Our political leaders have also, they are not wicked. I think that also we are lucky to have political leaders who are not wicked. They have always learned to accept defeat at the polls, starting from I mean, P.S. Njai in 1962, when he left, when he was defeated by the PPP. Okay, I mean, Sirif Diba fought many elections against Jawara. When the results came, he will accept defeat. So, I mean, this is the story, I mean, of political tolerance and acceptance that we also should be proud of. Because in other countries, people lose elections and riot and kill and loot. But so far, our political leaders have been selfless enough to not to do that. I think that is something that deserves recognition and appreciation.
Now, tell us what are the most defining moments in the country's political history?
Well, number one,
1965 to then.
Number one, Republic, 1970. April 24th, 1970, the Gambia became a republic through a referendum, not through a decree or through an executive order, as some countries were doing at the time in Africa, through a referendum. So you can see that our leaders have always subscribed, okay, to, the path not only of peace, but also of democracy, of consultation, of consensus, of dialogue. Number two, the 1981 attempted coup, led by Kuko Sambasanya. It was a bloody chapter in our history. People died, hundreds. Property looted. But, thanks to the effort of the Senegalese soldiers, normalcy was restored. Okay? But there also, the rule of law was upheld. There was no impunity. The rebels were tried and sentenced. Okay? The rule of law was upheld, and the rights of detainees were respected, such that out of the 81 coup, the Gambia was able to also attract a lot of foreign support. Aid came into this country in the tens of millions of dollars. Because the whole world sympathized with us. Number three is the 1994 army coup, led by President Jammeh. That was also a defining moment. It was a moment that brought to an end the First Republic. Yes.
Now, of course, many argue that the Gambians got their true independence in 1970, not in 1965.
No. You don't argue like that. Independence was 18 February 1965. A republic was 24th April 1970. Independence is independence. The day that we became free from colonial rule was 18 February 1965. That's the historical fact. Well, now, in history, you have the facts, and of course you have the interpretation. Well, depending on whether you are a Marxist, or an anarchist, or a capitalist, or a social democrat, or a feminist, you can interpret 18 February 1965 the way that you want to interpret it. But the historical fact is our independence was won on 18 February 1965.
Now, of course, we all know culture has a role to play in the Gambia's political landscape, and also since independence. Now, can you take us through some of the roles that culture and tradition play in shaping
a very important role,
identity?
very important role. A use of culture to mobilize for independence, like the PPP, which took us to independence, had a famous drum symphony called the Asiko, Bakari Marang and others. Then there was no radio, there was no TV. But the moment you had the Asiko drums, it's PPP rally. So culture was used to mobilize the people. Okay? The UP had Mary Samuel Njai, one of the greatest, songstresses this country has ever produced. You see. You had, popular music in the Super Eagles. Okay? Which also helped to cement, the cultural, reappropriation that was highly needed after independence. You have the Ifambondi. You see. In 1974, the Gambia created a national troupe. So we attended the 1966 Festival of Black Arts in Dakar and the 1977 Black Arts Festival, called Festac, in Nigeria. Our writers, like Henry Peters, like my older brother Hassoum Ceesay, edited a literary journal called Danan in the 70s. So you can see that the period after independence, facilitated the growth in arts and culture. This museum was created in 1985. You see, our sites, like James Island, started to receive attention, and so on. Yes.
On a final note, what lesson can Gambians learn for the past 60 years?
Well, the lesson is for us to continue to cherish and maintain peace and stability. The Gambia remains the most peaceful country in Africa. I think that is, another, feather in our cap. Everything should be done to maintain it, to maintain political tolerance, ethnic tolerance, religious tolerance, to continue to open up the, freedoms, okay, media freedom, freedom of association, artistic freedom. And also, we should work towards protecting the environment, particularly our river, because the River Gambia is a natural resource. It's a gift from God to the people of the Gambia. But unfortunately, we live in a period when rivers are being destroyed throughout the continent of Africa. Luckily, so far, our river has been spared this destruction of illegal mining, gold panning, and so on. So I believe, that is a challenge that all of us should accept and work towards protecting our natural resources. And also change attitude towards accountability and transparency. So that, public resources are well taken care of. That's very, very important. Thank you.
Now, I'll just have one more follow-up questions as to what does the future hold for the country as it moves beyond its golden jubilee?
I think the future is bright. The glass is half full, like I wrote in a commentary today. The future is bright in the sense that we have a youthful population. They are getting more and more educated, more and more wired up to the world. We have more girls in school than boys. That's good news, meaning that women will have a larger role to play in national matters. That also is positive. And if we continue, to abide by our democratic, tenets, and continue to, maintain, tolerance, the peace and stability will continue, and the Gambia will continue to prosper. I remember, 60 years ago, it will take you 4 days to travel from Bathos, that's Banjul, here to Bassi. 4 days. Now it takes you hours, maybe 6 hours, 7 hours. I think that is progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much.